Josh Allen didn't look too good last night, huh?
Yeah, he looks like he needs a girl.
Again, are we live streaming?
No comments.
Comment.
That's right. That's good.
I got a big kick out of the interview after the game.
Didn't even watch it.
Yeah. Went to bed like the rest of the people.
This door's gonna lock, is it okay?
Yeah, we can still get it in.
Okay, sorry I'm late. Okay, we're gonna turn around and have our
Thank you.
pre-meeting.
I'm already in.
Hello. Okay, I just wanted, a couple of things I just wanted to bring before we start. We've had paperwork that has been turned into, like Paul or individuals, all paperwork coming to this board, whether it's going to be presented to us in a meeting or whatever, it has to go through Andrea. We've had instances where in the past 2 years, actually, I've had to give her my stuff or turn copies over because they were not giving her the documents that we were going to be receiving, and she is the keeper of all the records. So I would appreciate if anybody comes to any of the board members and says, here, I got a copy, you either tell them you can't accept it, or it's your personal piece of paper, or you make sure that they get a copy to Andrea for us. This way she can keep the books straight for the public. Other than that, I'm just going to, kind of piggybacking off of that, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go out and buy a stamp for her. So when she gets it, it's going to have the IDA timestamp, she can date it, whatever, and then there's no issues in when we receive this document because they've never done it in the past, and I think it's time we do it. With that being said, Mr. Peterson, the floor is yours.
Well, I just thought it was an opportunity. I've been in the ninth meeting for me that it's just an opportunity to share some thoughts on where this board should be going, what it should be looking to do. I think there's been some differences of opinion maybe. And then the item that I got about 6 weeks ago, I made you each a copy of it just so you can read it. Did Ron ever get it? Did you know?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, and I'm not sure whether or not Mayor Ruda got it. Mike, did you know if she had gotten this? Because I couldn't believe that I'd be unique that I would
She
get
might
it.
have, she would have that in her own office, so
Okay.
she would have that.
So I just wanted everybody to have an opportunity to review what it was. When I read it, there was some things that you can see I've torn apart of them. There's some of the things that stuck out. It seems to me that housing units are important, renewable energy, downtown stuff. So it seems the two projects that have come since I've been here was Lucas Caves and the West Main Street thing. They both had that as part of the project.
Kevin, could you talk to that microphone a little?
And they both,
Thank you.
those both projects have had a component that was housing. And I remember asking a question very early on when I was here of our attorney and Paul about what the limitations would be on retail. And you tell me it's less than one third.
On retail,
On retail
yes,
as part of a project.
that's correct.
And these two seem to have fit it. Yeah, it was close. I mean, it was what, 30 some odd percent. So that sort of passes the first, to me, when you told me that, back in February maybe, that sort of passes the basic litmus test as to whether or not we can look at this. I didn't look at a lot of them. I looked at Amherst in particular. I went back through the last number of years. That was listed on their website, very much like this one is, where you can look at each of the projects. And most of them were not true industrial manufacturing type things. A lot of them were like this. A lot of them were even, if I remember right, there was some attorney's offices and such. But, and then this one here for every dollar exemption, it returns $6.50. I thought that was an interesting topic. I don't know if anybody else had any comments. It seems like, as broken out by area, we seem to be doing fairly well comparatively. I don't know, I'll just leave it at that and then have an open discussion as to, and then the final thing for me would be, I would really like to know if we're going to be, something is contentious, something needs to be discussed before we come here. To me, I felt uncomfortable just hearing about it at this meeting and then having to make a decision right then and there. I think if I maybe had time to review some of the facts that maybe you guys or anybody else has brought up or found out since the last time we met, that, I might have a different opinion. But I know, we meet once a month, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, what have you.
If I may?
Yeah,
So we are constrained a little bit from those type of meetings, am I right, Kevin? Pre-meetings, getting together, more than 3 to discuss.
well, right, open meeting law, right?
Right, kind of, so we're under these constraints that becomes private phone calls, I would think. Because I don't know how to communicate other with the entire board and discuss what we're gonna vote on without bumping up against the restrictions, okay? And not stepping on other people's toes.
There's no way to disseminate information that comes
It
about.
kind of seems like if the loggerheads will erupt right here. And I would like to avoid that if we can. So I don't mind differences of opinion. I think that's healthy, okay? And I think that we are finding our way through this. The state has changed its opinion a little bit about where it's come from. And I think the discussions we have, Kevin, amongst us, whether they appear contentious, I'm not sure that they are. Okay? I think that people standing up for what they believe in is they should. And I do feel the restraint of not being able to communicate with all my board members so that when we sit down here, we're either on the same page or so we have the respect to be shown. I don't know a way around that.
We set up an email for this reason, right? We just set up all the emails for that reason, correct?
But is that-
I mean, not that it's gonna be, I don't
Not
wanna
that you're
have.
making
You
decisions.
can't do everybody though, it's all, you can only, you gotta keep it to a few at a time.
So it's a relay phone call
If
system
you
that,
go over 4, it's even on an email, correct? It's considered kind of a quorum.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the open meetings law and the requirements
Right.
for transparency with the public. One thing that IDAs do to address, I think, the issues you guys are talking about is they have committees that are active. So you could form a committee of 4, they're still public meetings, to talk about projects that then can push those information upstream to the board at the meeting. That way you have a deeper opportunity perhaps at the committee level to vet those projects instead of doing it the way you're doing it now, which is at the board level. There's nothing wrong with the way you're doing it, but I think if you're trying to drive a consensus earlier than that, sometimes having 3 or 4, having a committee look at something first is a possible opportunity.
Only 2, though. Why do you say 4?
Well, if you have a quorum of the board present, the open meetings law applies. So any time that there's that situation, you have a quorum and the tape is running, even on the committee meetings.
So it's gonna be 3. No, it's 7 is there, so anytime you hit 4, you got a quorum.
Okay.
Because
Well, I would-
decisions go, well, yes and no.
If you break your, I can tell you, if you break your committee down to 3, 2 is present, you still have the same issues. Okay? Because you've formed a committee to address that. You can't evade the open meetings law by having less than that. I mean, it's outside the spirit of it.
Why don't we, again, in these meetings, bring forth projects in the meetings and not vote on them the same day? I don't understand what we're doing here. We seem to be rushing everything through, and it doesn't always even work out. It wasn't necessary to rush certain projects through.
It's a good point.
So you bring it in here. And we don't vote till the next time?
We've got 1 month in between for the public, the general public, but I think the issue was, without getting into any too much detail, we also had information that came in at the last minute. And there was no other way for us to turn around and do it except at the meeting, and there inlaid the problem. And we expressed that, and whether it was taken into consideration or not is another story. But I don't want to get into too much detail on that one. So that's where some of this came from.
At some point, there's no time to ever have a trading of confidentially one's true feelings, okay, without trying to hide or cover it. Things need to be discussed between us sometimes, and there doesn't seem to be a vehicle that we could really get that out without bringing it right here on the table. And you might be restrained what you say out here, okay? So I don't know how we get a better communication between the board members. And Bob, I agree with you, but we don't want to vote on anything unbeknownst, saying, I agree with you, Kevin. And the month I think we set isn't enough, it's enough time,
No,
but it doesn't catch everything. I agree with that. But we still don't have, not to build a consensus or drive one, just a place to trade what your thoughts are together as a group out of the public. And I don't want that to sound like you're
You're hiding things from the public, though. That's the whole thing. This is what this is about. This is democracy. If you're hiding your thoughts behind a curtain, then you're not being honest. Right now, Paul and I, Kevin wants to know kind of a direction. And I said it before, I'm looking at industrial and commercial because that's where the jobs are. It's what I want to turn around and try to focus on. Paul will talk about, we met with some people the other day, and he had a couple other things that he's been working on, which I have to thank him for. But as far as looking at it's a good read, and Kevin, I appreciate you bringing it, but my first thought on this was, when I started reading it, somebody had them do this for them. So they're gonna play with the numbers. I'm not a numbers guy like you, but I know that things can be, so that's $6.50 per dollar spent. I don't agree with that. I think maybe in some areas you're gonna get that type of results, but for the most part, the stores across the street, I've got a document here that says the stores across the street are not economic development. And that was from another New York State study going back. So I'm trying to look for something to where if a person needs a house, fine, but they've got to have a job to afford the house. And that's my main focus. We've lost too many jobs in this. I drove truck, Buffalo Fan's gone, Occidental Chemicals gone. I can't even name Joy Manufacturing, which is Cooper Manufacturing, is gone. How many things did you disconnect on buildings when you were in it? So I want to try to make the Lancaster idea a place to where we can maybe get a business like Paul and I were talking about to come back here or stay here and expand. That's kind of my thought, though.
That's fine, I know.
Yeah, I'm all for that, but the door is still open for a little bit more other projects.
But it's also, you gotta look at what is it gonna do and how is it gonna go forward? And what is gonna be the actual outcome in the end? And the actual outcome in the end is, like I said, the bottom line is, those are really nice, but they don't generate income for the people to buy the place.
But the state still allows us to address this.
Well, see, this is where it's kind of, to me, it's a misnomer. Kevin can enlighten me if I'm wrong. The idea of doing those type of projects were for areas that were depressed, needed that. Mostly it was supposed to be to rebuild old buildings that could come back to life and become apartments that were law offices or doctor's offices, like in the city of Buffalo. I don't think it was ever intended for brand new builds. And I myself look at that building there, and when you look at what the word retail means, it's basically all of your costs, everything you've got in there, insurance and everything else, plus a profit. What's an apartment building? It's a pure profit. He's not losing money on it, I guarantee you. And the reason he came to the idea is, my thought, and I'm using that one in particular, is because he did not want to make it he wanted market rate, he did not want to do the standard, which he could have went to the village and got in on that other thing, and then it would have been, he's going to be charged with $1,600 to $2,300 a month. I can go to Kenmore and get the same place for $950.
Who are you speaking about?
Well, it's the Sweeney's projects over here.
Okay.
When you're looking at that, he's going to be charging 16. Well, I think it was actually higher than that when we looked. You can go elsewhere, same type of layout, and you're paying 11 or 1,200 for a two-bedroom.
And part of the problem getting involved in retail stuff is we're picking, choosing winners and losers. Because one restaurant down the street, you know, who gets money for an IDA, all of a sudden is competing with somebody who didn't get money for an IDA. And they're making more money through that, you know, through their tax breaks or whatever, which apparently happened on Broadway, where one restaurant was left in business doing great, and the restaurant changed hands twice, and both times went out of business. Again, I don't have specifics on that. That's hearsay, but we can't pick and choose winners and losers. That's why we get to be very careful
I never
that.
look at it like that, Bob, ever.
Well,
I
yeah.
never look at it like we're picking winners or losers. I look at this as a process that this board is here to assist people that come through the process and qualify. I never look at it as a winner or loser.
Well, you are if you're giving one group tax breaks and the other group is not getting tax breaks, because they got an advantage right off the bat when they're competing. Businesses compete. That's what they're there for.
Well, I'm only making a vote whether they qualify for the process, Bob, that's all.
Well, yeah, but see, in the New York State guidelines, you're supposed to look at the area, and you're supposed to also take that into consideration. Is it going to hurt other businesses?
Well, Kevin.
Right.
Excuse me, but that would be up to my opinion, to make the same as you feel, okay? So my feelings are different than yours. It doesn't make them wrong.
No, but I'm saying that's what the state request that you do when you look at this to open it all up.
And I take their request in mind, and my opinion is a little different than yours of what you guys think is their only focal point here, industrial, okay?
I'm not saying that's the only one. That's the one I'm focused on.
Then and so be it, but the board again is made up by voting members. So the other side of that coin is what the mayor is speaking about. There is other applicants that can be and should be considered in this process. Otherwise, you are picking winners or losers. You're giving it all to an industrial when the state allows you to give to others.
Hello.
Sorry. I apologize.
Any other comments or questions, ideas?
The only thing I would just make sure that is clear for the board is that housing is not considered retail. And I think you guys know that from Kevin's comments. I think that there is, what Bob is saying about the restaurants is absolutely true. That's why that 1/3 is in place. Because they don't want the IDAs to be used for restaurants. There's only very limited exceptions where you can incent a business that is a retail facility. It has to do with distressed census tracts. If it's a tourism destination, you can do it there. And there's a third that is escaping me right now. These are limited exceptions. So you don't see a lot of those projects. When you do, they should be meeting those requirements if they're retail. But housing is not a retail project. The report in front of you is commissioned by the New York State Economic Development Council, which is really the lobbying arm for all the IDAs across the state. So what they do is they compile all the information about all the different projects that have been done. I think I agree with David's comment in that you're saying that this is a process that you're willing to look at, and the IDAs can do this, right? I mean, from our perspective, like on the legal side, my goal here is not to present to you a project that you can't induce, right? So if the applicant comes in and says, this is 40%, our project costs 40% towards retail, I'm going to tell you it's not going to be eligible. It won't get here. It'll stop with Paul because we're talking about it. No, we should report on it. I think that's important. But that's a gatekeeping item, as Kevin pointed out, that 33%, right, that of the project cost piece. So you're not looking, these type of mixed-use projects that you guys have incented this year, Lucas James and Mr. Sweeney's project, those are mixed-use housing projects. They can start from scratch. They can be fair market. what IDAs do when they're looking at those is sometimes they say, you know what, I don't like the way this looks exactly. Sounds like the developer's getting a great deal, others aren't. And some of them have imposed workforce housing requirements on those projects. I know Amherst does that. You're going to incent a project, you're going to have 10% of the units qualify for people who couldn't otherwise afford the unit. Kind of goes to what you're talking about, Mr. Chair, about $1,600 to $2,300 in rent for a unit. It's like most of us look at that and go, wow, that's more than our mortgages. So that's a challenge.
That's what they're going for.
Right. But this group, these are policy issues. What we're trying to do on the legal side is make sure that the board, when it makes a decision, it can vote on it because it's eligible, right? And I think that's what you're saying, David. That's what struck me with your comments. What you guys are talking about, what you want to do, is a different discussion. That's a policy discussion. And I think that's in part why the mayor asked for this meeting, is to say, okay, what are we looking at? What kind of projects should the IDA be doing? Those are good discussions.
And that's where Paul has been going out, talking with some of them. Like I said, he'll have some comments on that during our regular meeting. And of course, then again, it's got to be people who got to actually put in an application to us too. We can go up on the web and put up what we want to do or what we're looking for, but if we don't bait the hook well enough, nobody's going to bite. And that's where I spoke with Andrea. We're going to try to get something going a little bit. She's going to talk to the IT people and hopefully get a little more exposure out there. And she's going to be willing to take care of that too.
So to put into place our policies, still got to go through the board here and be voted on what our policies are going to be, correct?
Well, it's up to you guys how you want to address those things.
Well, my concern is, because again, like you weren't here, Mayor, we talked about not enough communication amongst the people. I suggested that a person come in, they give their, presentation, and there's no voting at that meeting. There's time afterwards for, one-on-one discussions or for us to do some research or whatever.
Which apparently is the way we're doing anyway, because we're not taking comments.
We got the 1 month,
we're not
in
taking
between our
comments.
meeting here, we have the open public hearing, and then the following month, we actually do our vote. So you got a month to get your public hearing, you get the public input, who can make it, that type of thing.
Well, it seems sometimes that we're quickly voting on things.
I disagree. I think that month is an ample time to be looking at, thinking about, having discussions, and the fact that we don't vote that evening.
So aside from the time that you got something rather late before the next meeting, Mr. Zanner, so
Sorry, Mayor.
if Andrea gets something, or one of us gets something and presents it to Andrea so she can timestamp it, and then she can disseminate that out to everybody,
Right.
and we can consider certainly as individuals what was in that document without.
Yeah, as soon as you
without
start a discourse, that's the issue. If you get something in as a received item, it's a public record already, right? I mean, it's subject to FOIL at that point, subject to limitations. But something like that, certainly. I mean, at that point, it's a public record. Sharing it with the board when it's already subject to FOIL, as it has come in. I mean, you're certainly it's the question of the discussion after that, right? And the decision making after that really should be in the public eye.
Well,
But getting documents,
And that's why I wanted to reaffirm that. You weren't here. Well, part of the issue was we did get a document. We're going to talk about it today, but in the past even, Andrea is supposed to get all the documents. So if anybody tries to give you a document, if it's yours for you, fine. But if they're going to present it for the board, it's going to got to go to Andrea and be time-stamped in, and she'll disseminate it to the board. Only because last year we had the same issue. I was giving my copies to Lisa, and I've done it with Andrea because copies were not provided to her. She's the record keeper. We've got to give her these documents. And if she doesn't get them, we shouldn't have them. Okay? Any other questions?
I'm good. I appreciate the open conversation.
Nope. No problem. Hello, Brand.
I'm excited about the big milk.
Yeah, well, I think Paul talked to them again. What we might do with this grant, I just looked at that real quick. I think we talked with Andrea real quick. The books are probably gonna go up on the shelf, so we can discuss that later. Perfect. Because there won't be a need to,
18 cents seems excessive.
it's not even, it's, we've got the place for the
Yeah.
books in the building. I'll leave it at that.
Perfect.
You know, something, I just realized I don't have the agenda. I didn't print it, and I thought she had one for me.
Yeah, I think because I printed out like the first 10 pages, which is,
Oh, I just need.
which is the
one.
meeting.
I just need.
No.
one. That's all I need.
Oh, just that?
Yeah, that's all I need, just so I can get it in order. I appreciate it. I thought she'd have one here for me, and I didn't. She didn't print one. Oh, thanks to Andrew to go back.
They did second, but independently, and they run the ball, second and 15, like, it deserve what they got. Oh, yeah. You really did.
They should have 3 times, and then no, and then throw it.
Why do you change your strategy? You just walked up the field 2 seconds ago. You didn't do something different.
I know. I'm so bored.
That might not be the right offense for him. You know, he didn't, I don't think people thought about it. Like, you know what, maybe he needs to have 3 receivers in the field and a tight end. And he had 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, 2 receivers.
Decent. Titans too.
I know that's the problem though, but they drafted, now they're gonna do it. And it's like, is this quarterback gonna use them? And that's the issue. We'll see.
Yeah, I looked at it on my phone, but I didn't want to.
I hear you. I know.
Once we got it. I'm always in my longest.
It's so hard to trust them. You know, there's 52 degrees and it's 72 in the afternoon.
That's right.
Right, I see grants that are a little wet.
Yeah, they might not get to do it necessarily.
Good afternoon. I've been,
Yeah,
What are you doing?
I was in Niagara Falls, I got stuck in the rain. I was in Williamsville, I got stuck in the rain. I came here, I go to get on the truck, it starts raining. All day long, I've been caught.
So was Niagara County. So was Lockport. So was Chautauqua. So was the NCIA. So was Amherst. So was Hamburg. So was us. She's concerned with the fact that, you know, with this everybody's all this stuff, we got through it, no matter what happens. By doing this in Niagara County, it's supposed to come so simple, it was the grand out of the bridge. Yeah. But it was a good meeting, so I so the guy says actually, but you're not going to see this one. So am I. Come on.
Yeah.
And John said, we in the statement, yeah, why don't you take it one day? So am I. He's not going to change.
No, but everybody's got their mind in the sand.
See, what you and I go through. So, yeah.
And if not, I'll get
So
this.
Andrea,
I was gonna go by this, but if you want to go by the wall, there's a minute difference
there's a
between
lot
the
that Stephanie brought up. You know, she's great, she's a trooper, she brought it up, you know, so we're close to having those letters issued. I've got a
two. We'll
template
go by
letter
the
ready
wall
to
clock
go
for now,
out
I
and
guess
pilot.
it'll be no. Call the meeting to order, if I may. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Chair Livingston.
Here. Okay, turn around and want to turn around, anybody want to approve the minutes from the August 8th, 23 meeting?
Make a motion, we approve and accept.
Member Rizzoni.
Yes.
Member Leary.
I got a question on that. When the meeting minutes are amended, is anybody reviewing the videotape to see whether or not that actually happened word for word that way?
I usually do it myself.
Okay.
When I go through the minutes, I usually watch it myself,
But I noticed there were some amendments from the attorney this time.
Yeah.
Did you review those and see?
I reviewed that.
And his stuff was accurate then? Okay, great. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Member Peterson.
Yes.
Member Reno.
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Member Straight.
Yes.
Chair Livingston.
Yes. Okay, your CFO report, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My report was included in the agenda for you. The cash balances as of September 1st in the Chase checking account, $602,644.43. In your New York Class account, $1,012,184.65. So you had total balances of $1,614,829.08. No checks were received for deposit since the last meeting. We did have four vouchers that were reviewed by the treasurer for payment this month, totaling $4,350, so those are being paid today. A couple other items I noted, pilots, this were in the new tax cycle, so I received the pilot exemption list from the town assessor, reviewed those, updated those, added any new pilot exemptions, removed any pilot properties that are now back onto the tax rolls. So those were done. I also had a couple properties I looked at where the assessed value didn't match the exemption amount, so I confirmed those with the assessor, also talked to the attorney about that. So those were done. All the school districts have their pilot calculations, but I'm also going to be reviewing those couple properties just to make sure, even going back a few years, just that they were billed properly, because it's a little unusual where they would receive a tax bill and a pilot bill at the same time. So I'm going to look into that and I'll report back at a future time. I'm also going to prepare a list of any pilots that currently appear like they might have burned off their pilot, where they're now being billed at 100%. So I'll review that, get that to the assessor to review, and as well as with the attorney, in case we are able to terminate any properties, we will do that. And then the last item is regarding the draft budget, which I provided to you last month. If you were ready to approve that today, you could approve that today. Or if you felt that you needed another month, it could be approved in October. It's due to be filed with the state by November 1st, so it would need to be approved next month. There was some feedback regarding administrative salaries for town employee services over the past years. We found that there were some inconsistencies on how that was being handled, where in the past there was an additional reimbursement to the town. Recently, there hasn't been a reimbursement to the town, and there was 1 year where actually the employees were paid directly by the IDA. So depending on how that is sorted out, you may have to add some administrative salaries back into the budget. You could do that over the course of the next month if we're able to figure that out, or you could adopt the budget as is and amend it as that gets addressed. But I did want to bring that to your attention.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, Mike, you and I talked about it. I do have, if somebody just for the heck of it wants to see it, I don't want to make it public, copies that he gave me of it. Because the $30,000 we pay the town, that's supposed to cover everything. And since Mike took over and we purchased our own computers, we're not using the town's computers. The only thing I think they're supplying with us now might be paper. So, you know, and so the discrepancies were there, and we wanted, like I said, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. The board members want to see it. Mike cleared it up, I thank you, and it's done properly now, and we're gonna make sure that everything stays the way it is.
And that 30,000, you're planning on saving that?
Well, the 30,000 we pay the town to use this building. It was to turn around and pay for paper supplies, Andrea's salary, Donna's, because she's doing the pilot billing for the town. It was supposed to cover all of that.
And so are we having talks with the town about an adjusted bill?
That's gonna be coming. That was something we can't do right now because it's not something that's in our purview. We can amend our budget next year, you know, in January, February, whatever. But at
Right.
this point, I don't wanna play around with it. Let's just keep it at the 30,000.
And then we can amend it.
And then we can play with the numbers and move things around later. But I wanna make sure, because all of this has to go through the town so they get paid.
Yeah, and if you look at previous budgets, some of the budgets had the $30,000 in the IDA budget, and then it also had, just an example, like $7,500 for the CFO and whatever, $3,000 or $4,000, whatever it was, $5,000 for the secretary. So again, it was done differently. And if you look at town budgets, it's broken up differently. The 30,000 is listed as something, and then the other monies are listed somewhere else. I think with all the changes that have been made in here, that $30,000 should cover everything at this point, but that's going to lead to another contract between the town and the IDA for that to happen. Again, you know, all this stuff in here, there've been some cuts. You're doing the stuff the CFO or Director of Finance was doing for the town before. So again, it seems to cover everything under the 30,000. So we got to sit down, have a contract, and just say, you know, that seems to cover everything, as opposed to those independent salaries going.
Right, and that's how past budgets were, including last year. You know, we had mirrored prior years, and as I was reviewing the records, we weren't making payments to the town the past few years, which is why I amended the budget. So in a way, it was a good thing, a positive thing, because it started this discussion.
Yeah, and I thank you very much. You went through and did the extra book work because it's going to make it fairer for both sides of the fence and cleaner as far as trying to keep the books up.
So if you're good with the budget the way it is, you could approve it today and it can be filed with the town, or excuse me, with the state, or you could wait another month and you could address it next month.
Okay. Well, why don't we take one thing at a time? Make a motion to approve his report.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second?
Member Bidoni?
Yes.
Member Leary?
I don't know, I mean, from a town perspective, I think there's got to be a contract in place before I can do that. So again, maybe I should just abstain at this point from it, because again, I want to check and make sure, you know, because it was done the opposite way before, where those other things were coming in at different salaries. So I'm going to abstain at this point.
Okay.
I can abstain.
Yes, I
Okay.
just want to clarify, the question on the table is just approval of the CFO report or approval
CFO
of the
report.
budget?
Oh, just the
No,
CFO
just the
report. I
report.
thought you
We're
were talking
not-
about the
yeah.
budget.
No, the budget, we're going to vote on that now, whether or not I'm going to ask the board if they want to vote on it, but this is just
This is
for
just on
him
the
to...
CFO
Well, let me
his
just say, I
report.
think it was a wonderful CFO report. So, yes.
Member Peterson?
Yes,
Okay, Member Rito?
Yes.
Member Runa?
Yes.
Member Straight?
Yes.
Chair LeMaster?
Yes. Okay, now we'll bring up, just a yay or a nay. Do you want to vote on the budget today, or do you want to wait till next month so you can look it over? Show of hands for voting on it today?
I'm prepared to vote on it.
Yay?
Yeah,
People speak
yeah,
up,
yeah.
please? Okay, we'll vote on it then. And like I said, like Bob said, we can negotiate with the town board next year and see how they want to work it. But that was one of the other problems, the last CEO, and last year and the year before, there was no actual contract in effect that we could find. So we're going back to 2019 from what Mike could find when an actual contract was signed. So we were just kind of like following the norm, which we're going to have a contract. So, okay, well then we'll vote on it.
Okay, Member Bidoni?
Yes.
Member Leary?
Abstain?
Member Peterson?
yes.
Member Rito?
Yes.
Member Runa?
Yes.
Member Straight?
Yes.
Chair LeMaster?
Yes. Okay, the vouchers, you already talked about that. Okay, we got the letter from Mr. Sweeney, it's a pilot extension.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sweeney is here present for questions.
Any other board members have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How you doing, Mr. Sweeney? How you doing? Nice to see you. So you're requesting an extension for Phase 2 and a waiving of the fee.
Yes.
Why are you doing it at this particular time?
Because we have to make commitments now to be able to get this project underway. So thinking about the timeline, we received our approval in June, I think it was, went out to bid immediately, received our responses in August, and found out very quickly that the trades in the subcontractor field is very, very limited. We have not received bids on certain parts of the project because everyone's so busy that they can't commit to the timeline that we agreed upon, which was to break ground in mid-August, which would be a couple weeks ago, and be able to do a 12-month process in building the building. We were supposed to be done by the end of next summer, fall. Right now, the way it looks, with the availability of the trades and even the cost challenges we have, we still want to break ground, but that's not going to happen until either March 1st or April 1st. Problem is, all the financing is locked in right now. If we don't close on the financing now, we will lose the financing and not be able to break ground at all. So to do that, we can close financing now and wait the 6 months. We have the flexibility within the financing to do the construction over a 2 to 3 year period of time. So we're going to in theory, we're going to want to lock that in right now within the next couple months before the end of the year, break ground in March or April, but then we still have a 12-month build cycle, which puts us past our approval time of 12 months with the IDA board.
So the letter addresses basically the cost of labor, material, but that's not a Johnny-come-lately reason. That's been in effect since COVID. Prices have been going up, inflation's been going up. Did we extend phase one at all?
Last year, no, not phase one. We extended the same project last year and had the same, we waived the 0.25% and we extended it. So basically, we're extending this project if we go to 2025 for 3 years.
So, you know my concerns. We spoke about this openly last time about what percentage of this village would you own at the end, rather own a rental space or a commercial space. And I'm still concerned with that. And I can see from public record that your companies have bought more property in the town. In the last 6 months, you've purchased property in the town? Your companies.
My companies.
Plum Bottom?
What is it?
Plum
Bottom Creek Properties, yes.
Okay.
I don't know of any purchases that we've made in the last 6 months. We haven't purchased property in quite some time. We've done some refinancing. I'm just trying to think of what that would be. We did purchase a property on, Birchwood Common, which is a house from a friend. They asked us to take a house over to renovate it because they didn't have the time to renovate it. And we're going to sell that house. That's a home over near Hillview.
Well, my point is that we've already extended this once and waived the fees, and you have enough business to go out and continue to buy properties, develop them, and sell them, and it almost feels like we're financing that, to me.
Okay. So to give you an example of that Hillview thing, that was a very close friend of ours. They called us out of need because his girlfriend's father passed away. There was an opportunity to be able to raise a little bit of money to turn that house over, both help a friend, turn that house over, and put that money into this project because of the overruns of cost. We did want to take advantage of that because we do need more money to do this project. This project is constrained at this point.
Well, without being gauche, sir, that it appears that you have enough to help a friend out, and the board is not concerned with helping friends out. So
Okay.
I'd say maybe you should reconsider your application for another 4 or 5 months down the line and come back. And that's just my own personal opinion, and you guys know that I've said that before. I'm a little worried about assisting so much of the town and the village property getting into one person's hand. Okay? That's all I had to say.
What is 1/4 of the point fee in actual cash value?
I think it's $25,000 off a $5 million project.
It's
13. So on this
He
project-
only paid about $13,000 for, this is phase 2 now?
Yes.
And he paid the 1% already?
But he got a waiver last time and he's asking for a waiver again. It's $13,000 each time?
No, on this project, it's $13,000 per quarter because that's the project cost associated with that. So I don't know what the fee was for phase one. It may or may not be.
Oh, I don't know what, no,
Right.
no. this-
But we're saying
this
right in
phase
here, the
two.
1/4 point fee. And my
Right.
question is, what is the cash value of that? We're going to waive that.
It's $13,000.
It is 12.
So he's asking for
Yes.
another $13,000 to be waived?
Well,
It's not.
according to your policy, it depends on how long the extension is. So the fee schedule says for an extension of an inducement, each extension of 6 months shall require payment of 1/4 of the agency administrative fee. So if this is a request for a year, it's actually a half of the fee, which would get you 3/4 to the full 1% that the agency would charge for the project.
Okay, and the cash value of all that is what?
50.
What?
Keep asking the lawyer math questions, he's going to eventually screw up. So,
The total
yeah,
fee
52.
is approximately 100%, 1% would approximately be about $52,000.
Yes, yeah.
He paid 13, he's asking for a waiver. Now, see, this is not phase one, this is phase two, and he's already paid the 13,000. What he's asking for is for a extension for when this expires in, because we approved this project in May of this year. June, I'm sorry,
June.
okay. So the extension is going to go another year and a half, if you would, for the project itself. We're not granting any more or any less.
Okay, but all I'm asking is, right
ahead.
here in this sentence, for all these reasons, we are respectfully asking for an extension through June 2025 and asking the board to waive the 1/4 point fee that would be associated with the extension. The amount of that 1/4 point fee is what?
A 1/4 point of the $52,000 total 1% fee is $13,000.
So it's $13,000.
That's the request. But
Okay.
again, I think you have to look at your policy. Policy says for 6 months extension, it's a 1/4 point, right? This is a different request. So the way I read it, it's a year request.
So it could be more than that?
Yes.
Right.
It's
That's-
26,000.
Yeah, exactly, okay.
And so just to clarify, when I spoke about the other one, that was for phase two also. They asked for a,
No, it couldn't be, Kevin,
Mr.
because
Chair,
we
the
just
phase
approved
one's
this.
already closed, he's already paid all that fee and
No,
everything.
this-
This is strictly for phase
22.
two, which he's paid the $13,000, 1/4 of 1%. What he's asking for is,
because that was for Chair Fedoli, who was here, and that one, it got postponed last year because of COVID. And now we're doing the same thing again. Because that letter was sent to Chairman Fedoli last year. And if you only get copies.
Mr. Chair, we have already received all the fees for phase one. That's-
No, I understand what-
That's closed.
I think-
What Mr. Sweeney is asking is that not so much to waive the fee, he just doesn't, if we approve it today, he just doesn't want to pay it today.
I realize what you're saying,
Okay.
Paul. My whole thing is, I'm just trying to make sure that the board understands where we were last year and where we are now, because we do have some new members that weren't here last year and didn't hear about this. So they're coming in cold, and I wasn't gonna bring this, and then I thought, well, if I have to, I'll just have it here, so instead of me trying to explain it, it's in writing.
I can probably provide a little bit of clarity around that one. It definitely was phase one. We were closing out phase one, and within the impacts of COVID, we obviously tried really hard to both put people back to work, to build that building during COVID. But at the end of that, we almost ran out of time to close that pilot. I believe we requested an extension that we never used, and then we ended up closing that project out on time within literally a couple of days. I remember Dino being on vacation the following month. We needed his approval at that point, and it was questionable whether we'd be able to get all the search documents and the closing and the legal fees done. I think we ended up requesting that. It did get approved, but we ended up not utilizing that because we did close it on time, just within a couple of days.
Okay, no, thank you for that.
So just to clarify, is this phase one or phase 2?
Apparently, it might have been phase one that he was closing. I thought phase one was completely done, so I misunderstood the document because of the dates.
But it would have to be one, right? Because it was, 2 was just approved in June.
No, right, and that's, yeah, that's part of the, where were we at that point?
So this letter requesting that we're reading right now,
That's from phase one. That was the end of phase one, then, so I stand corrected.
and can we verify that he did not use this extension? Is there any way to do that?
There's really, it's,
I can provide the closing
yeah, I was
documents.
gonna say, it's kind of a moot point, it's done.
Okay.
It's closed out, it's paid for, it's done.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges with Phase 2, unfortunately. When you think about the cost of this next building, it is, incrementally more. Because we're out of COVID, there's a lot of things kicking up and kicking over. We've got the stadium that's now starting to impose on us. We really wanted to break ground in the fall here because we know concrete's going to be an issue in the spring. All the concrete's going to be going to the stadium, is our understanding. And we've even got challenges ahead of us getting this thing underway. But unfortunately, the way timing goes with these projects, and you've probably seen it from your experiences with all of the previous projects, we all continue to hit roadblocks and hit challenges and hit financial issues and other things. And again, it's just me. I don't have, any type of large company or foundation behind me. We just saw Savarino go belly up and walk away from a $22 million project in Batavia. Then that's in chaos right now, and they're trying to figure out how to remediate that. There's so many different challenges in the construction industry. I'm not really a construction guy myself. I've always been, working 2 jobs, working my day job and investing in real estate at night and trying to better ourselves. And I'm trying to figure a lot of this out as we go. This is probably going to be my last project if we get it done. Because we continue to experience hardships and different things that we have to get through. I'd love to show you all the books and how difficult this really is to do. But it's difficult to do that, obviously. It's hard to, it's not something you can really teach somebody how to do. You kind of got to go through it and learn through the process. And it's just very difficult. Me and my wife have found that out. So we obviously have a great following. We want to make an impact on this village and continue to grow it like we've been, so many have been trying to do for 50 years. But we continue to hit these roadblocks. If it's appropriate, we will back off and back away from the project and walk away from it and keep that as, parking, convert it back to parking or whatever we got to do. But, this is an absolute, there's no question. I'm not trying to hide anything. We're continuing to run into these roadblocks, and the trades are terrible. Our normal tradesmen we work with did not bid on this project. My roofing company walked away, my plumbing company walked away. The price of electrical gear, if you look online, has doubled in the last 6 months. If we would have started this project 6 months ago, we probably would have had a better shot of doing it than we do right now. Lead time for electrical equipment, by the way, right now is 65 weeks. That's well more than 1.25 years. We wouldn't even be able to apply the tax benefits from the IDA to that purchase unless we receive the extension, which would have to be executed within the next couple weeks, even to lock in that lead time and get the project done on time. So there's so many hurdles that are so difficult. I know that's not your problem, obviously, but understanding it from the construction industry, there's a lot of challenges here. So completely up to you guys. I'm asking for that, obviously. However you choose is fine with me.
Do you feel that the project is still viable?
I feel it's viable, and I'm willing to take a lot of risk in the next 3 months to lock in and pay all the closing costs, close the IDA pilot, close all of these things for the possibility of starting in April. Now, I can't tell you what's going to happen because these contractors don't guarantee prices past 30 days. So we're going to be looking to basically take the risk, get your approval here today or as soon as possible, lock these contracts in, make our commitments, spend all the money on closing costs and attorney's fees for the hope that we can lock contracts in February for an April start. And I do believe it's possible. It's going to be a tremendous amount of risk for our family. We'll do what we have to do to get it done, but if that's not something this board wants, that's for that decision to be passed.
So, Mr. Green, what's the difference between these 2 letters here, just so I'm clear? Seems like you asked that you were pushing out the completion date from November 26, 21 to May 1st, approximately 6 months,
Okay, yeah.
right? And you were asking for a 12-month extension, which would have been from what date to what date?
For the current project?
No, for one.
For the previous project? I want to say there were a couple extensions probably that we went through over a period of about 3 years, because our original approval was in 2019, and then we couldn't break ground until 2020, and then COVID hit literally 5 days after we got the previous approval on May 20th. May 15th was our approval, and I want to say May 20th, we got kicked by COVID. We still ended up going forward, but it took longer because we couldn't start like we wanted to. And then at the very end of the Phase 1 project, we did request that additional extension that we didn't end up using. We ended up being able to close the documents and get Dino's signatures that we needed to close the pilot before he went on vacation in the summer of, what was it, 2021, 22? 22, I think it was. And closed everything out so we could go forward.
So in the new letter, you were asking for the extension to go through June 2025.
That's a one-year extension so that we...
What is currently on the books?
Yeah, and currently on the books is June to June, so 22 when it was, or 23 to when it was approved. We should be done with the credits and such in 24, but we're not going to even break ground until probably March or April if we can. So we would be starting the project at that point. We need that full year of cycle, 14 months of cycle to get that project complete. We will push hard to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
No, I'll just comment, and I don't know if Mayor Peterson or Councilmember Leary have projects going on in your municipality, is that we're experiencing the same difficulties with pricing, with what our engineers have estimated, to what project costs are coming in, to the timeline that our projects are running. It is very frustrating. So I do believe him when he says that there have been significant increases in cost and delays. We are experiencing them as well.
I do. I mean, my project in the park has gone from $648,000 in 2019 to $1.8 million. And the delays, I can sympathize with some of the delays. In fact, today I was beating the drum today because I've got an event there in a couple of weeks. So you've got to pick up the pace to get this darn thing finished, so I can sympathize with that.
And I can sympathize too, but at the same time, it's not up to the board if businesses are running into business problems to always come in and rescue them from those problems. Most of the projects in the town, obviously, if they haven't gone through the IDA, they're kind of on their own as to whether they're going to complete them or not. So again, I don't think it's our job to step in there and rescue everybody. Asking for fee waivers, asking for more time when this thing was pushed through before because it had to be done and had to be started in August. I mean, I remember asking for tabling of this thing for 30 days to check into a few other things, and that was just absolutely, couldn't be done because they had to begin. And now maybe it's going to happen next year. So again, I don't really think we should tie ourselves to maybe it's going to happen next year. And I don't think, I definitively don't think there should be any waiver of fee if this board decides to allow that to happen.
Yeah, my point was, the bottom line, going back, you can watch it on tape. Mr. Sweeney could have went to the New York Forward and requested money. He came in front of us saying he wanted this IDA so he could make it market rate, which is, we were discussing earlier, anywhere from $1,600 to $2,300 an apartment. If he would have went through New York Forward, and the project might have been started already, I don't know, it wouldn't have held him up at all, and the cost of the apartments probably would have been cheaper, like $1,000, $1,200, like I've read on other sites. So that's my concern is, I hate to put it to you this way, but it's kind of a self-inflicted wound, because you go to grab for a brass ring. I'm here trying to look at it for the general public. And most of the people that you are shooting for on this apartment couldn't afford them. And that's the bottom line. This is twice what my mortgage was. And that's my thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, specific to those questions, the apartment rates are from $1,400 to $1,900, and they're capping out right now at $1,700. So they are considered affordable apartments. We're not anywhere near $2,300. So
Okay.
it's definitely our rates, and they're so close to within affordable housing rates, but it's very difficult to be able to pay for the massive costs of construction and still get that back. People are only willing to pay for so much for rent. You know, it's not gonna go up beyond that.
Okay, thank you.
And 13,000 is what the number is?
Yes, and, just a point of clarification, if you grant the waiver of that fee, you're still going to get paid a total of $52,000. You're not waiving the right to the 13. You're simply saying you're not going to collect it in exchange for the extension. In some respects, the idea is that the extension pushes out your closing, right? And that's when you get paid your administrative fee. That's why I think it's in the policy. I didn't write your policy, but that's what's in there. So when we're talking about waiving it, you're not foregoing the $13,000.
You're just not getting it
You're
today.
delaying the receipt of that until a later date. So it's a little, I think the waiver language is a little confusing. You are going, out of this deal closes, it's a $52,000 fee. It's a timing question.
What you could basically do is, say for instance, the original one expires in November of this year. He could still come back and ask for a 6-month extension in November of 2023. At that time, he would have to pay another 0.25% to get a 6-month extension. And that would be in November of 2023. So he could come back and present us with a letter saying, I'm asking for another 6-month extension on this project. At that time, he would then have to pay the $13,000 fee. It's not a waiver, okay? So he could still ask for a 6-month come November. And that's up to the board to do that. It's not up to me, it's not up to Kevin. That's the rules of the IDA. He could ask for another 6-month extension, but then he would have to pay that fee.
Back. That was my original suggestion. Maybe you should be coming back here in 5, 6.
When you made your phone call to me, that's what I suggested to you, that if the board was not willing to go along with a 1-year extension from November to November of 24, I suggested to you that you let this go, because he still has that inducement, and then come November of 2023, he comes back with another letter asking for a 6-month extension, and he pays the 0.25%, which is $13,000. That's what I suggested to you today.
So he would come back in 2 months?
I can't hear her. What'd she say?
Come back in 2 months.
No, you're talking about almost 6 months here.
No.
5 months, right, Paul?
But from June, I mean, you're talking from.
I'm saying from
Wait.
now, like,
Yes.
from now,
today's
He would
date.
be back.
we're gonna say no, and we can bring him back in 2 months to ask for the same thing?
He could come back in 6 months and just what Paul said, apply again. And
But
the board would be in the same place we are now with our vote, okay? Obviously, we're not going to vote on this today because we've already decided that we're not going to take anything to vote that was just handed to us. So we have 30 days here, board, okay, to get to this.
That's why it was brought to you today.
Yes.
Because you can do it at the next board meeting and give him the 1-year extension. If not, you could do what I'm suggesting under IDA rules.
Yeah, in other words, wait till next month, or we can go for a 6-month.
6-month in November of this year.
Exactly.
So just keeping in mind some things, and this becomes part of the mechanical part of what I do. If I don't close the construction loan within this year, we lose our interest rate, we lose the project, because the interest rates and the secured financing is based on a locked-in interest rate right now that expires at the end of this year. So we would have to, if we came back next year, there's no way we could close the construction loan this year without the approval. So, and it is an extension from June to June to get us to June 2025. It's going to take approximately 14 months to build this building. If we start in April, we need to get all the way to the roughly April to June of 2025.
But Tom, I'd have to refer back to Kevin and talk about whether or not he could control. Can he close on the construction loan in this time period?
I don't have an answer for that either way, Paul. I mean, that's really.
Yeah, I think it's a matter, if I close, I'm making a commitment to the construction, I'm paying all the fees, doing all that, locking in the interest rates with the assumption that I'm going to go forward, so we're paying all that money up front. But right now, I would have to complete the project by June with all of the IDA benefits, the tax benefits and such, which obviously we break ground in April, we only have 2 months to close. We need that additional year to build the building. The construction schedule is 12 months plus finishing.
But what the board is saying, Tom, to you, is that give them time to digest this.
For sure.
In 30 days at the next board meeting as to whether or not, which way they want to go. It's a board decision, it's not Kevin and I's decision. It's the laws of the land.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so therefore, if they want to just give you a year extension from November 23 to November 24, that's their decision. If they just want to just do 6-month extension come November of 23, you still would have to pay the $13,000 and you would get a 6-month extension if they approve it.
Yeah, it's just the November timeframe is not the right date,
Okay.
right? Because it's June to June, so we're currently approved till next June. We would need at least a 6-month, if not a year extension to cover all the costs, to do everything within their proper timeframes.
My point, Mr. Sweeney, was that you should have known that months ago. At least weeks ago.
We actually-
So once again, you're handing us something with it's on fire. Sign this.
Oh, no, I'm not
Well,
handing this on fire right now. We have till the end of the year to close it, so.
No, but you've come to the board and put us in this position where it's on us to make sure that your project is successful. It's not on us to do that.
No, not at all.
Well, but it appears with such short notice that once again, you have to sign this or we're going to leave town.
No, I'm not saying that today, and I don't want that to be interpreted in that way. I gave this letter to Paul approximately 2 weeks ago to get this distributed.
That's not enough time.
Only to be presented to the board. Like I just said, we have till the end of this year to close construction loan. We're not breaking ground anyway because we're in so much turmoil with these contracts, and we didn't have any expectation. When we were at the board in June and we got our approval, we were working with every one of our contracts. They all gave us pricing, estimated 60% pricing. We were relying on that pricing for this project to go forward. When we designed our 100% drawings, which by the way is the exact same building we built across the street, they came back and instead of our price at 60% being $400,000 for a part of the building, let's say electrical, that contract came back and said, it's going to cost you $660,000 now because within the last 3 months, pricing has increased 30%. And by the way, even if it's increased 30%, I can't give you the equipment for 65 weeks. So all of the dynamics that happen within the trades have put me as a builder and every other builder in this region, and probably in the country, in a very awkward position. That is not your problem, don't get me wrong, but that's my problem. For me to go forward and make this benefit, I would need to extend my time frame to get those things in line and to be able to move that forward. But we do not expect an approval tonight. This is a good conversation and it's good questions and back and forth. All we need to do is get this approval so that we can close the loan. And the loan, the bank thankfully extended our closing dates until late November, early December, so that we can make these adjustments and these decisions and confirm all of the parts so we don't get ourselves in trouble and go bankrupt like a Savarino did.
But see, we're going back to the mayor of Depew's discussion. We always talk about how this board wants to review projects. We're now telling you that you now have time to review this letter, or this project, whatever, until the October board meeting. So you've got the discussion period now. It's in front of you now. And to act on it in October, and talking to Kevin, we can, but that gives you time to discuss. And that's what you have in front of you right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, I guess we'll move forward. And any other questions? Everybody okay with everything then at this point? All righty. We have no old business.
Yeah, we do. We just the one I want to talk about is Glauber.
Well, that,
You want to do that under
is
old
that
business?
old? Is that old, or you want to put it under?
Whichever way you want to do it.
Okay, put it under old.
Okay. Let me tell you what, I'm quite excited about this project because Kevin and I just met with a company called Spraz, S-P-A-R-Z. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's in the village of Depew, but what's happened is Glover Industries, which is on Commerce Parkway in Lancaster, I've been working with him for over a year. It's called a company called Spraz, S-P-A-R-Z. What happened was he's buying the old Glover building, which moved to Tonawanda. Another company had bought them. So we were going to have a vacant building. So we found this building, and he's paying $1,750,000 for it. It's assessed for $1.2 million. So what we're going to do, we can't do an IDA. He's not doing enough for me to grant him any benefits at all. So what we did is, and Kevin was at the meeting, what we had, I arranged a meeting for the M&T Bank, which is going to do the whole thing. We arranged for the SBA to be there. They were there. Mike Taylor was there. And also, we also talked to the bank about what we call linked deposit, where they get a 2% subsidy and so on and so forth. So that being said, we have saved a company called the Spraz, which is moving from Depew. They're actually at 786 Terrace Boulevard, Mr. Mayor. So they're moving to this empty Glover building. And so without any benefits at all, this IDA, Paul, what we did is we put together and we saved the company that's now moving into the town of Lancaster without any benefits whatsoever from the IDA. So now what we did the SBA, we did the link deposit, we did the bank, everything is done. It's just a matter of us moving from the village of Depew into the town of, is that the village, Mayor, or is that the town on Commerce Parkway?
Commerce is the village.
So we saved the company, and it's called a company called Spraz.
The town, anyway, here.
The other thing, any questions? Okay, the other one is I like, and Mr. Leary and Mr. LeMaster, I've had 4 meetings now with Upstate Milk. And what they're asking for today is not today, because I've just got a tentative application. We started off with just doing sales tax only for their corporate headquarters on Pleasant View Drive. And I talked to Mr. Leary, I talked to Mr. LeMaster, and what we talked about is just doing sales tax for this company so that we can do a major corporate headquarters here in Lancaster. So after meeting so many times with them, it went from $1 million to $1.5 million for 1 year. So I made a suggestion for them so that we can keep them here, and I talked to Kevin about it, and we can do this legally, is to talk about a $2 million project, sales tax only, for 2 years. Now, it's for discussion again today, and I have an application, but it's not complete yet to give it to Kevin. So I'm asking for to a little different policy. Instead of giving them a sales tax exemption for 1 year, give it to them for 2 years for $2 million, and to keep a corporate headquarters here in the town of Lancaster. So this is for discussion. So that is then, again, under old business. And you were there, and so were you, Mr. Leary. So if you have anyone to speak, you're more than happy on Upstate Milk, and you're more than happy to talk about Spraz too. So again, that's it.
Yeah, and Upstate Milk, I believe, Paul, it's not so much we're giving them production equipment or anything, it's their headquarters. Hopefully we can get the refrigeration unit that they might be looking at down the road.
Yep.
But with that being said, this would be for their infrastructure, computer systems, that type of thing, right, Paul? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it would just be updating their internals so they can be more efficient. It is a co-op, so the farmers themselves own this. So it's farmer-owned.
296 farms.
There you go. So it's basically a family-owned business, if you want to
So
call it.
I'm not asking for any votes. This is for your discussion again, and we'll probably bring the application back in the October meeting for approval in November, so that you have time to digest what we're talking about.
Okay, super.
That's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the old and new business together since we combined them.
I'll make a motion to accept old and new business together, combined.
Second.
Member Guzzo?
Yes.
Member Leary?
Yes.
Member Peterson?
Yes.
Member Reno?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Member Straight?
Yes.
Chair LeMaster?
Yes. Okay, we have a resolution to execute the delivery of mortgage. Kevin, I don't know if you want to explain it real quick. It's the same as what we had last time.
It is. You probably looked at it and just noticed that we just changed some names and some numbers. The last one that we looked at was Upstate Rebar last month that you guys approved. There's no new benefits here. The company has completed their project. I think, Kevin, you took a drive by just to make sure, right? Which is good. And they're not asking for anything from the IDA other than consent to this new mortgage. Standard request and resolution is standard. Any questions, happy to address them.
And if anybody wants to deal with David Kubacki, he's the one that's involved. He made about 6 phone calls, so we're recommending this very highly.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Reno?
Yes.
Ruda?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Chairman Master?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. I'm just going to kind of mention, we do have a new policy, 5-minute. Please talk to the board members, raise your hand, I'll call on you. And you address the board members in total or myself. And if there's any questions that have to be kind of cleared up, fine, but it's not going to be a back and forth discussion. So with that, do I have anybody that would like to speak to the board? Please give your name and address.
My name is Paul Nasbish Jr. I live at 31 Newell Avenue in the village of Lancaster. Chairman, would you mind if I sit down, please?
No,
Thank
be
you.
my guest.
Thank you. Chairman and Board, today I had another educational talk with a member of the staff of the ECIDA. And I do my own research. I eliminate my own opinions. I just want facts. So these are the facts, the questions I asked him, because I just want to know. We talked about inducements for apartment buildings, and this was really a profound answer. I asked them about just apartments, especially luxury apartments, and I realized this is just now to break off, this is not but they don't produce jobs, that's a fact. But in order to have apartment buildings, he says, this is his words, they have to be adaptive reuse. 80% is for workforce housing people with area median income. And I always, because I want to get off the opinion when this is adaptive reuse, as you all should know what that means anyway, because you're sitting on the board with a old building that, adaptive reuse. And it can, it benefits that type of, with the adaptive reuse with people with that type of workforce housing area median income. I looked up the median income of actually our area with payscale.com. And this is what this said. Average salary in Buffalo, New York is $68K a year. Trends in wages decreased by minus 0.6% in quarter to 2023. And I totally understand that point where the expense of, as I read, the expense of living alone, your daily expenses, your weekly, even what's not taken into consideration that should be if they have children, single, married, whatever, divorced, whatever. So that was really a learning aspect of mine, and I totally I really understand that point now. And then we got into with the retail positions created, these are the questions I actually asked them. And the only time with retail, still it goes to, he brought up these words, the core and shell of the adaptive reuse building. And if it's small, enough because it's part of it, which was the excellent word. It's a component of the reuse that you could actually have a small retail store because it's already there under the adaptive reuse. So that fits in within the actually the New York State Industrial Development Agency. And then I went to question him about this is on, as you all can get on just like I do, the ECIDA website. We're talking about the evaluative criteria. And this, I'm reading what it says now, okay? ECIDA project type matrix required state criteria, material terms, and suggested evaluative criteria. So I want to really truly understand what it meant by required state criteria. The matrix that the ECIDA has posted is literally the matrix. And what I got out of that, what he said, and I asked him this, with a New York, this is a state mandate. And I asked him, within the legal terminology, does required mean mandatory? And he agreed, and it's part of compulsory. You have, as an IDA in New York State, like Erie County's IDA does, they follow by verbatim the required state criteria, and they do not break away from any of it.
Okay, I have to cut you off there, Paul. I'm sorry. You're 5
Can I
minutes
ask who
out.
you talked to?
Quickly though, I just lost my, what really broke down, I talked to him
Paul.
even weeks back. Quickly, I need to say this. This is really astounding. What he says, what can happen with any IDA, it's when lawyers get involved.
Okay, I gotta stop.
That's
you,
his,
Paul.
that's my understanding.
Legal is something that we need. It's something that's there. There's laws put into place for a reason, and the attorneys are the ones that kind of help us.
I understand that.
So
I fully understand that, but
Thank
there
you
are
for your
reasonings that I've seen within the realm here that
Thank you.
questions are
Thank you
being
for your comments.
asked.
Thank you.
Could you
By the way,
tell me, can you
Mr.
tell me who
Reno,
you talked to?
respect that.
Can you tell me who you talked to?
Thank you. You want to know who you talked to at the
Not right now.
Let me explain one thing though.
Not right now.
If the ECID, who I worked with for 30-some years, if a project comes before them and it's all residential, okay, all they do is sales tax and mortgage recording tax, because the city of Buffalo includes the school tax and the property tax in one bill. And they have what they call a 485B, which goes right to the assessor of the city of Buffalo, and he approves it under an application, which is 1 page, and they get 8 years of the new appraisal for zero for 8 years. That's called 485B. The total project is 12 years, and then it reduces to at the next one. But the first 8 years, all you have to do is go to the city assessor, and the ECID has nothing to do with it. All they do is do the sales tax and the mortgage recording tax, and the 485B the city of Buffalo does, and it's 100% abatement. Am I correct in saying that?
You're talking apples and oranges with
That's
the way
exactly
things are
right.
being deciphered.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about IDA, New York State.
Okay, we're not really not supposed to be going back and forth. That's,
Yes.
sorry. Okay, to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Peterson, I appreciate what you said at the
Second motion.
meeting beforehand.
Maringoni?
Yes.
Yes.
Peterson?
Thank you, Mr.
I'm sorry. We're adjourning? Adjourn. Yes, I'll gladly adjourn.
Member Reno?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Member Straight?
Yes.
Chairman Master?
Yes. Thank you very much for everybody for attending. Be safe and stay dry.
And we're looking at, what date? You know?
For next meeting?
Yes. Because there's the Columbus.
Yeah, I think it's...
Have you ever had your CFO report praised like that before?
Yeah, it's gonna be October 10th. It's always the